Hello and welcome to the August 2020 Sunshine Summit. My name is Heather and I am your host. In association with Geeks Rising, this week we are bringing to you a week of live streams to recognize and celebrate connections because the connections that we make on our journeys have a huge impact on us. We've got a great week lined up. If you need any of the details, they are at sunshinesummits.live. We're live streaming on twitch.tv/sunpowerpod. So if you want to, it'd be great to follow and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. But if you did miss us and you're watching the replays, thank you for catching them. They are available at sunshinesummits.live as well, or on YouTube at youtube.com/HeatherWelch, which is exciting. Today's guest is an amazing person who has incredible connections throughout his life. He has a passion for sound, and it is amazing to be able to connect with him today for the Sunshine Summit. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
You are so welcome. It didn't quite work out for us last time. We were going to have you in March, but you are here now, and we had the
And bring
amazing
back a
opportunity.
very, very painful memory. Yeah, I was actually disappointed it didn't work out back then. I really wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, well,
Glad you gave me a second chance though. Making it good now.
I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. Thank you to everyone who is in the live chat. Hey Tim, hey Bandrew, hey Not So Busy, and Midori. Awesome to see you. If anyone has any favorite connections that they have with Ellen along the way, let us know in the chat. Or if you've got questions for Ellen, let us know. We connected through the podcastage community, which is also an audio based community, but you have a passion for sound, and your tagline is sound advice from a pro sound guy. So I was wondering
Yes.
if we can start with a little bit about how you got into this passion of yours.
Wow. Sound was it was one of the two crafts I could have gotten into. The other one was camera. Back as at the very young ages, my grandmother was always, with a still camera in her hand, taking pictures, and I was always a ham. I wanted to be in front of the camera. So as I got older, all she did was put me in front of the camera even more and more and more. Then she got a video camera in the 80s and started all of a sudden taking this to video. She let me loose, when I was a little boy with a cassette recorder and I would go and record, and that's how back in the '80s, if I wasn't causing trouble around the town, then she would give me a tape recorder and say, "Go off and record stuff," and I'd record everything I could and then come back and wanna spend hours playing it for him, which I'm sure was extremely boring. But as I got older, it was video camera, started making the worst movies you've ever seen. Then as I got even older, I started to make better things. I went to a performing arts high school that was into the arts. I was very involved in theater and in, production at a very young age. I was into public access television, hired directly out of high school, by a video production company. And it was really there that the guy who hired me, who was the main boss of the company, his name is Scott Forbes, brilliant guy, I love him to death. Um, he told me something that really stuck with me because I always wanted my videos to be better, and I felt like I'd gotten them pretty good video-wise. But then he said something that really stuck with me. "If it doesn't sound good, it doesn't look good." And I was like, "What does sound have to do with it?" And then he showed me. And I mean, I'm 18 years old. He sits me down. I'm his primary editor, and he starts showing me some of the tricks that you use to do sound editing on an old SVHS to SVHS linear based tape system. And I was looking at this like, wow, the stuff you're able to do with audio really sells it, really makes it pop. It really makes it stand out. So I continued to be a shooter for him. I was doing more and more with sound. I started DJing, I think, in '96. And as things progressed, I was doing more and more with regards to production, getting involved with short films, getting involved with short projects, getting involved with longer projects even, and then it was basically I was given an opportunity to join either a sound department or a camera department first, and it ended up being I was called by a sound guy. So that's how I ended up in the film industry and sound, and that's kinda how I ended up there. But it's kind of an interesting path, and there's even a lot more to it than that. But that's the Cliff's Note version. Cliff's Notes
Cliff
version?
notes. Yeah. So if anyone wants to discover more of your detailed sort of history and how you got to there, you have a video that you made on your channel that people can check out.
Yeah, just do a search for SoundSpeeds history and it'll pop right up. It's about 10 minutes longer than this entire podcast will be. So I don't need to recap it here, but, if you have any interest in hearing about the path that I took in much more greater detail, then go there. I'm long-winded and love to talk, so
That's awesome. I love to
there's plenty
listen,
there.
so that works out. Um, we do have a question that came in from Bandrew, and he said, "Do you still have these worst movie ever made movies
I
that you made
do.
as a kid?"
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they're on tapes that are right underneath this desk over here. The world will never see them, Bandrew.
Oh.
I don't care how much money I'm thrown, they're not gonna ever be released. No. There's these are they're terrible. They're terrible. You're lucky, Bandrew, that I showed you the very first feature film I worked on, which I had been talking about for years saying it was terrible, and you know it's terrible now because 'cause you've seen it. And that was enough.
It's amazing though to be able to make things and be passionate about making them, and that's how you get better at something anyway, is by,
Yeah.
trying and recording and doing all the things. I had a little tape deck when I was little as well with a microphone, and I'm pretty sure I used to record anything and anything I could and then play that back for everyone ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Much to
Now as an
their
adult, you understand it when someone's like, "Here, I'm gonna play with this." My 4-year-old gets a hold of this terrible, cheap microphone that I got on Wish for a April Fool's prank this year, and she loves coming in here and playing with that microphone, and she'll turn it up full blast, full echo, full distortion, and she just loves it and laughs, and I'm just like, why didn't I throw this thing in the trash?" She she loves it though.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned, about a contact that you made, on your journey, and I would from watching your, guest spots and interviews and, like, your live streams and things, it would seem that it's not necessarily what you know, but it's also who you know has a huge important part to play, in the film
Yeah,
industry.
yeah. Very much so. Scott, he no longer does the kind of stuff that we used to do together. We would do corporate videos, we do weddings, we do all kinds of stuff. He doesn't do that anymore. Now he's actually a director for big shows. He travels the country, well, not since COVID-19 shut everything down, but he has traveled. He was actually in Vegas when they shut down the big show that he was doing and sent him back home. And he's here now, but he does a lot of that kind of thing. But yeah, it's from getting into public access television, for example. Sorry, I just nailed this microphone. Getting into public access television, it introduced me to a bunch of people. Now, some of those guys went off to work in news. Some of those guys went off to work on other things because public access television is one that I don't know about everywhere in the world, but at least in the 90s, it was a great opportunity to cut your teeth on production. You could check out video cameras, you could get access to studio space for free, and the only thing they asked is that you followed 4 basic laws or rules that they had, and you sign off on basically renting out the studio or whatever, saying that you will repair anything you accidentally destroy,
Yeah.
which which ends up being quite effective as a tool because it gives people an opportunity to learn to care for gear, to learn about the gear, and even though it's not state of the art or top notch, it still gives you an idea to learn a lot of stuff, and they would teach classes you could enroll for and start learning that, and I got into public access television. I would volunteer for everybody and anybody. We pushed the limitations of that studio to its limit because I fell into some guys that really early on were just like, "Let's figure out a way to do this. Let's figure out a way to do that." One of them now is my sound mixer, Aaron Siegel. Aaron Siegel, he started off as an engineer. He even, cut an album in 1989 with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, and Trent was, it was and I don't remember, it was stuff that ended up on Pretty Hate Machine, so I think it was just before that they were doing this album together, and he you know how it is, everyone's like, "You're listening to my demo," there's the jokes about that, but Trent and him were in the booth working on something, and he kept saying, "Here, let me show you this really awesome track." And he was just like, it was too much at the time because he was a DJ back in the '80s. He was a club DJ, and he was like, "It's way too much for, we can't use that." Little did we know that a year later, Trent Reznor would have totally changed everything and turned things industrial. But it's just, but he has an engineering background. He's one of my closest friends, and he and I have known each other for now over 25 years. But we started in public access television together.
That's awesome.
So it's really neat how you run into people, intertwine, create this net, and then you may step away for a while, but you'll end up coming together and you'll be right back where you always were. And he and I haven't always worked on the same teams. I think before I joined him for Black Lightning season 3, the last show I had done with him was *Halt and Catch Fire* season 3. And so so I had left that because he didn't have another show lined up at the time, and I went to work for 2 seasons on *Walking Dead* with the season of *Stranger Thing* that. And then I did another few shows. I did a couple of features and another TV show, and then he ended up needing a boom operator again, and we synced back up. So it's you never really turn your back on anybody that you know, but it's really cool when you reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. One of your guests that you had live also mentioned her experiences and that you need to like get a certain number of hours or whatever on different projects, but it's also who knows who that you've been on certain projects as well so that they can kind of vouch for you to give that word
Very
of,
much, yeah.
yeah, your
Especially when you're
experience.
in a craft like sound where there's only one person on set that does your job. There's only one sound mixer, there's only one boom operator, there's one sound utility. I mean, sometimes there's multiples, but usually, in order to get trusted with one of those positions, you have to you have to have someone trust you to get there. They're not just gonna call someone up who has no background in sound, no skill sets that are going to be beneficial to the show and the production. It's really it's what I usually tell people is there's 2 main things you gotta know if you wanna be in the film industry, and they're both M's. You gotta mingle with people,
Hmm.
and you gotta master your craft. If you can do both of those things, you can start to master your craft by learning about wireless microphones, learning what microphones we use in the film industry, start to learn about acoustics and how to shut down sounds, how to identify things that are critical on set, how to look at a script and break it down. Little things like that are very critical. So even if you don't have experience, you can still get that information. The analogy I usually use is it's kind of like a stone. If it's got jagged edges and stuff like that, it's still a stone, but it's only through experience and time does it start to smooth out the edges and become really shiny and polished. And that's very much the way it is. You can start off as a big hunk of something, be chiseled away at through your knowledge, but then it requires polishing, which involves tumbling over time.
Yeah,
So, and that's a lot of the way that I like to think of it is that I made a lot of mistakes when I first started out, and there was some people that would say, "This guy does not ever need to be on a set again. Get him off set. Hire someone else. He's a bad reflection on you." Well, I wouldn't be the way I wouldn't be where I am today if my sound mixer, Aaron Siegel, actually listened to that.
yeah. So mingle and
So,
master your craft are two key points from there. Bandrew said
yeah.
Halt and Catch Fire is so good. Still so neat that you worked on that. Hi Ping Pong and Chris Curran, podcast engineer, says hello.
Hi there. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah. Um, those are hugely important. It would be hard if you were not pushing yourself, if you are a little bit introverted perhaps and still passionate about wanting to be on that. You still kind of have to make yourself known and listen and be really receptive and connect with what's happening around you so that you are proactive and you are in the trying to be in the right place at the right time and all those things and the skills that you need to learn to master your craft,
Yeah.
as you're saying.
Well, there are still introverted people that work in the
Yeah.
film industry. There's actors that are introverted. A lot of the time, there's almost like a work mode that you get into. The Alan that people see on SoundSpeeds is always very fast-paced, energetic, wild, crazy. That's very much me. But on set, as a boom operator, I have to be very reclusive. I have to be someone that doesn't pull attention. If I'm on set and they're lighting, they're gonna say, "Hey, let's get you to step off set right now. You don't need to be here." I'm like, "I do need to be here." "No, you don't. We're lighting right now. Lighting doesn't involve sound." Yeah, it does. Because all it takes is me throwing up a boom to reveal shadows, and you're gonna tell me you're shadowing all over the place. I'm gonna say, "Yeah, because you kicked me off set and I need those treated with while you're putting the lights up." It does involve sound. You just don't think about it.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of aspects to it that people don't always think about it. And one of those things is that even introverts have a place. The main thing that I tell people is whether you're introverted, whether you just do not like people at all, whether you do like people, doesn't matter what your craft is, you have a place in the film industry. The big thing is, do you have a thick skin?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing right there is you cannot if you bust a take by dropping a boom in the frame, or you're a camera operator and you mess something up and you're hazed by the DP. There's going to be people that aren't happy with you simply because it's costing money. The shows I work on usually can be upwards of 20 or $30 a second if something matches up. And if you screw up something for more than just a few seconds, you've cost the production company hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And some of the shows that I've worked on, it'll be hundreds of dollars per second. And so obviously it's going to make people pretty mad if you botch something up, but then humans aren't perfect beings. And when you have a combination of a whole bunch of people that come together to do something like a movie, you're talking about over 100 crew members. You're talking about all the cast. You're talking about directors, producers, and everybody that comes together and they're on set. Everybody has to be on their game and it has to perfectly jive together to work out. If it doesn't, if there's one little bitty mess up, then it totally changes what's going to happen. It could mean that the timing's off on a stunt. It could mean anything. And and that's what you got to understand is that somebody might be mad at you for being human and breaking a take, but if you're skilled enough to be on that show, accidents happen, and you can't let people just batter you down and beat you down mentally because you messed up. You
Yeah.
gotta move past it.
Finicky's in the chat and she said that's a lot of pressure. So having a thick skin and being able to deal with that. But Midori also pointed
Yeah.
out, she said, I would imagine conflict management is an important skill to have on set.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're actively on set, because and especially being a boom operator, which is what I do on set, there's gonna be people that always say, that I need this area for a light. Okay, well, I've been only standing here for 2 hours, but I still need that space for a light. If you can argue it all you want to, but the DP trumps you and is gonna kick you out of that spot to put up something, so find something else. And so you could either argue it and make yourself out to be a jerk and whatever, or you can crack a joke. I got a lot of jokes. So a DP will, somebody will say, "Hey, I'm going to put this right where you are." It's like, "Finally, you're here. I've been saving the spot for you for 2 hours." It's like, "Finally, I can leave and go get a drink. Thank you." And they'll laugh and smile and something like that. But there's a lot of different things that you can say, um, and a lot of different takes. It's not going to help to stew about something, but a lot of it's outlook also.
Yeah,
Having a much more positive outlook towards something is really important.
that's an important point to take. Finicky said, I expect all boom operators to have real buff arms.
Well, what's funny? It's not about the arms. It's all right. I'll tell you a real quick funny story. I did a movie 10 years ago, I guess it was, with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Betty White. The very last day on set, Jennifer was leaving, and she had her. I think she's married now, and it's her husband Alex now. But they were on set, and they were just hanging out. They were very approachable. We would talk sometimes, and me and my department was just like, "Hey, Jennifer, can we get a picture?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure. Come over here." She puts her hand on my shoulder, on like the top of my shoulder, right over here, and the scene we had been working on that they were turning around, which means the cameras go from turning this way to this direction, and they're changing and reversing the lighting and stuff. They were turning around, and I had been up on a ladder at a really awkward angle, and anytime you do really weird angles, it pushes your muscles into weird places. Well, at the time, I was doing a lot of weightlifting, I was doing a lot of things, so she said, "Sure," when she said, "Sure, come this way," she puts her hand on my shoulder, like, right up here at the top of my bicep, and instantly says, "Oh my god," turns and starts grabbing my arm. This is in front of her now fiancé, and she's like, "Oh my god," she's like, "You are a rock," and I'm like, I have Jennifer Love Hewitt approved biceps. This is awesome. And this was like right in front of her boyfriend. It was in front of the department. I'm like, I'm glad y'all were all here to hear this. I mean, the rest of me, forget about the way it looks, but the shoulders and arms, those are approved. That was what mattered to me. I thought that was a pretty awesome story.
That is awesome. Um,
But my main point in that was it's not so much about the arms. Holding it over your head is what people always think a boom operator does. But believe it or not, there's a lot of techniques you can use where my daughter's even said to me earlier today, "Dad, have you been working out a lot during the time that you've been shut down for COVID-19?" I'm like, "No." She's like, Is it gonna be hard for you getting on set and holding the boom over your head?" I'm like, "Why did I have to hold the boom over my head?" I did season 3 and barely ever had the boom over my head. A lot of it's technique, a lot of it's managing the set, a lot of it's knowing how to do things to not hurt yourself.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why very successful boom operators like Jonathan Fu, Ken Strain, Kevin Cherokee, those guys have been around for decades booming. Uh, earlier this year, I believe we lost um, Don Sufel, who's a legendary boom operator of over 4 decades. Well, I mean, he'll tell you he would have told you that the boom doesn't have to go over the head for you to be successful at your job. There's a lot of technique and tricks, but just like anything, you don't have to do it the way that people always think you do. Usually, if you go over your head with it, under many circumstances, it's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah. Finicky put out the old work smart, not hard. Work smarter,
Yeah,
not harder. Yeah.
yeah. That comes into play a lot.
On the
It's
note,
definitely a head game.
yeah. On the note of tips and tricks and things, but also being on set, one of my favorite questions or things that relates to me is about nature connections. And when you're on set and doing jobs that you've done, you're out in nature a lot, but you've got to kind of be careful because being too connected to nature in your job cannot be such a good thing.
Very much, very much. Geez, I think it was years and years ago. I kept going outside and when you're standing in the sun all day long, because you have exterior day scenes that you have to do. So you're in direct sunlight. In the Georgia heat, it's 100 degrees, humid, and the sun is just nailing you. It's a sauna, especially if it sprinkles a little bit of rain on there. It feels nice until the second that it stops sprinkling, then it turns into a sauna. And it's brutal. And so you have to sunscreen it up. You have to bug spray it up because it's the South. Bugs go nuts during the summer. It's like Golden Corral, buffet. They love it. And so you have to protect yourself against that. It's a joke that if you go back and look at like Walking Dead season 1, they interviewed the cast and the cast said, "Well, basically because they were talking about makeup for a zombie apocalypse." And they're like, "Well, most of my makeup consists of sunscreen and bug repellent." And that's the joke that they made, but it's true a lot of the
Yeah.
things that the cast and crew does, but then all you do is you put all that stuff on your skin, it soaks up, it gunks up, it pulls every little bit of dust and debris out of the air, and bugs are you gotta reapply every 30 minutes. It's gonna make everybody stink like crazy, so people end up using all kinds of different organic and natural scents and essential oils that they find effective and things like that, so it makes a set smell great. I say great.
Great. Yeah.
Um, but one of the things I realized is don't just, put yourself in that. A lot of guys were on set were wearing long jeans. And I'm like, why would you do that? And they're like, so I don't have to put bug spray or anything on my legs. I'm like, a lot of sense in that. So I started experimenting with the same kind of techniques and things like that. I started covering up my skin. And then I found that the more I covered up, the more I appreciated it because I could then start wearing lighter layers that as long as they were SPF 50 or something that protected against the sun, if a bug landed on me, it might think about it, and it doesn't wanna try to get through this material, and maybe so, but if I spray a very light coat of some sort of bug spray on top of that, it's not gonna soak in and get into my skin as much, it's gonna stay on the outside of that material.
Yeah.
So when I'd get home and I'd strip off all those layers I've been in all day, I'm not gonna be gagging, I'll still say, "Man, I need to take a quick shower," but I'm not smelling and reeking of bug spray and that kinda stuff like I used to. And in
Yeah.
all honesty, when you don't have to, like, block the sun from your eyes and hide underneath umbrellas and stuff, and you just stand out in the middle of the sun under direct sunlight wearing light layers, including, head covers that block the sun, and then a mask-like thing that comes up underneath, and then your headphones, and you're in the shade, you're able to enjoy it a lot better because your skin breathes through all this material, and so I've gotten this kind of reputation of being the crazy guy that covers up his skin
Hmm.
on set. But then I'm also not the person that's running for complaining about the weather at all. I'll stand right there in the middle of set with direct sunlight on me, and people are looking at me like I'm the crazy one, and I'm like, I'm actually fine because I'm staying hydrated.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, it's voodoo, and I say that all the time on set. I'm like, it's voodoo and it's weird, but there's a reason why people in the Middle East, like in Egypt and stuff, they always use this technique. They layer up a bunch of light layers and protect it, and you always think they're crazy, but there's gotta be some sense in it, and believe it or not, there is.
Yeah. There's a method to the madness, but yeah, that's important to consider because you might be shooting anywhere. You don't know, like all different films have different scene requirements and things, and
Yep.
that connection to nature you have to really be mindful of. Not only keeping yourself safe from the sun, hydrated, like you said, and Finicky said, talk to an experienced landscaper and they'll tell you to wear lightweight wicking long sleeves to
Mhm.
try protect them.
And if you go out even in places in Asia and people working in the rice paddy fields and stuff, those guys will wear long sleeves and big, huge big
Hats.
hats.
Hmm.
And people will always laugh and joke at them. Why are they doing that? Why are you layering up? Well, you think they're doing it because they're trying to hurt themselves or dehydrate? There's method in it. There's a reason why, you know.
Absolutely.
Pe-
So nature connections are maybe not your favorite, but something to be mindful of in
well,
that
I'll tell you
sense.
this.
Yeah.
Making it more comfortable
Mm,
when you know you got to be on set, you're going to be in 100 degrees weather. It's going to be hot regardless.
yeah.
It makes it a lot better. It makes it a lot more manageable when you don't have bugs biting you and eating you alive. And the sun is I mean, you look at my skin. It's extremely pale. I can't I was the only person on the set of Walking Dead that was out there for 16 episodes in direct sunlight that comes out of it looking pale. And people were just like, "Were you in the production office?" I'm like, "No, I was on set every day." How'd you do that?" Cover up. Just cover up your skin, and then, it's and in all honesty, it's to me, it's a lot healthier when you don't have
Hmm.
to put all those chemicals on your skin.
Absolutely.
So, it makes you enjoy things better. You're still gonna be hot regardless, but it makes you enjoy it, the whole experience, a lot more and appreciate things. I did, a show a couple of years ago. It was, Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase, and we were shooting in, I think, Monroe, Georgia, and I wear this chest rig that has, various different things in it, and there was some birds that were chirping in this t tree nearby, and it was driving us nuts because we kept hearing it, but then one of the as I'm standing on side of this porch, all of a sudden I see something out of the corner of my eye fly towards me and like hit me and like I'm feeling this crazy thing. I'm like, what is this thing? And quickly I jerk and just turn and it ended up being a baby, one of the baby birds was trying to fly. He had flown out of the tree and couldn't make it into full flight, flew on me, but I was like, what is this? And I like turn and like it fell to the ground and the key grip goes and picks it up. It wasn't hurt or anything. It was just, and picks it up and takes it over and puts it back. But it was like it's one of those things where you can't get much closer to nature than to have nature land on you and interact that kind of way with you. It's it's
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
it is. Um, just want to quickly sidestep here and say thank you to
Sure.
Banju and Nick and Midori for subscribing. That was amazing. Thank you. There was a bit of a hype train happening. It was his time to shine, Finicky Fox said. Um, how how often have you had like things being interrupted by nature, like the bird thing, or sounds that you can't isolate and things like that?
It's actually well, here's the thing. There's a couple of different ways to look at it. On set, we want to control everything we possibly can, and the other things we want to try to minimize as much as we can. Things like birds, how are you going to quiet down the birds? There are techniques. One of the things that you can use is what's called a garden defense owl. For example, if you buy an owl from a Pike's nursery or someplace, if it's an if it's plastic, but it looks like a bird,
Yeah.
a predator at that. So if you as long as the birds understand what that bird is, the predator, they're going to be quiet because they might expect owls and stuff to come out at night. But when you take one of those, you throw it up on a stand in the middle of the set, the birds are all like, what is that thing? And they go quiet.
That's
And
awesome.
so that's a little trick that you could get away with for a couple of hours while you're there. Cause after a while, they'll start chirping a little bit and saying, that one's not moving. And the whole idea behind a garden defense owl is you'd move it from a few different places throughout your lawn in the backyard. And it's going to deter away some birds, but not all.
Hmm.
And that's just one technique and one trick you can use. But another one is to take two like blocks, like, the kind of building blocks that you used to play with as a kid, put them together in a V, snap them together like that. It makes an incredibly loud snap noise. And if you can do that for just long enough to make a whisper or a scene or something and to capture that cleanly, then the birds are going to be like, what was that noise? And, there's also, like, with regards to dogs barking, one of the things that we will also do is we have dog treats that we'll go over and see if we can give them a big selection of it. But another thing is that you can take a little dog whistle, one of those high pitched, whistles, and
Hmm.
just give it a little puff, not trying to hurt its ears, but just a little puff, and then we'll be like, What does that sound?" And they'll go quiet to listen. And then you do it again, and they'll do the same thing, so they quiet down. There's a lot of little tricks like that we'll use to control and not hurt nature, but to have it cooperate a little better with us.
That's awesome. Those are cool. I know this trick about having another bird there because you can see it even in like your garden or what have it. If a bigger bird comes in, other birds will go away. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool. Mark said, "I love it." And on the note of all these things that you've know and the experience you've gathered over the time, you are sharing that on a content creation journey that you're doing on YouTube, and
Yeah.
you've recently got SoundSpeeds.us, which is your website, so everyone can
Yes.
find everything that you do there. But I wanted to
Mhm.
talk to you a little bit about the journey that you've gone on creating content to help share the sound advice from a pro sound guy.
Okay. I guess you could say that I've been kind of as I mentioned before, teaching is one of those things that I think is something that humans need to do. That's one of the reasons why we're very sophisticated as humanity, as humanity as a whole, because we help each other get to the next level. I know that the film industry is very, I don't want to say it's very frowned on, but when I first started, it was very difficult for me to get a lot of experience. As I mentioned before, people were saying this guy doesn't need to be on set, get him off set. That's very much the mentality of he doesn't need to be here, and it makes it very difficult for you to get that experience. Now, sure, you can start off on the smaller projects and stuff, but as soon as you get to the bigger level, I had done smaller projects, and here it was on my first bigger show, and they're telling me I don't belong there, get off set. How are you ever going to do it in a prominent role like being a boom operator? So, one of the things that I started doing is as soon as I got the basics down, started becoming no longer a beginner, but more of an intermediate type person, I started to kind of say, I'm going to teach people the beginner stuff. As soon as I then started to become more of an advanced level and people started telling me I was advanced, I started teaching the intermediate stuff. When I was told by someone who'd been working in the industry over 3 decades, well, you've mastered your craft. I started teaching the advanced stuff. So I would start to instruct people and teach people because it's one of those things where a lot of people don't share the information because many people are of the opinion of you got to do the hard work yourself.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to respect this knowledge is by getting out there and learning it yourself. But I find that it can be very difficult. There were some people that I knew when I first started out that made one or two mistakes on set and people listened to them and didn't bring them back. Those people aren't in the industry anymore.
Hmm.
It's extremely difficult. So one of the things that I started doing is teaching techniques that at least allow people to have a base core of knowledge, and provided that they're the right kind of person that can apply certain techniques when they're told by someone else in the department, and maybe they have the ability to have a thicker skin, they have the ability to kind of problem solve and troubleshoot, then it can help them to at least get going. And once I kind of started to teach a lot of classes officially, and I was backed by things like my union hall, I then, after a few years, found that there were many of the same questions I was asked over and over again. Many basic questions that I think that people should have known. And so I launched SoundSpeeds originally. I agreed to do 100 videos. I said I'm going to do 100 videos that were going to aid in the classes I do in the real world. But then what was very interesting to me is over my first year, the first community that really grabbed hold of me was the podcast community. And so when I started to teach a lot of people techniques that matter to us, they're like, that's really cool. I like that. Start asking me questions. So as I started to do more and more with people that were interested in podcasting, I started learning more about people that were into filmmaking. And then I became teaching more and more about those tricks that you really don't have an opportunity to talk to people about, especially other pros. And so that's when it kind of became one of those sound advice from a pro sound guy. Because when I first started teaching the union classes, people were just like, "Oh yeah, isn't it isn't it rewarding to give back?" It absolutely is. But when I started teaching stuff online, people were like, "I have a problem with that because these people, you're teaching everybody. You're teaching everybody and anybody." I'm like, "Right. I'm teaching everybody and anybody. That's gonna make everything better." And they're like, "Well, you're teaching them to do what you do." I'm like, "Oh, no. You think they can do what I can do? No." I mean, sure they can if they had that experience, but a lot of these people are learning information that they're gonna put into their own projects. They have no interest in being a boom operator. So, there were a lot of people that frowned upon what I was doing when I first started it, But as soon as they saw what I was doing and the benefit of that, now you have a lot more people teaching online, and it's making everything a lot better. And I think a lot of it also was that the old school film people, some of them started to retire and say, "I really like what these younger guys are doing now. I wish I would have given back and taught more."
Hmm.
And the transition from analog audio and recording on set with Nagras and one single microphone as a boom, hardwired, changing over to multiple cameras on set. Now everyone is laved. Now multiple booms are flying. You're changing up all kinds of different things. You have, you know, it's totally a different creature when the world of digital popped up there. And I did both before and after. So I understand it. But a lot of those old school guys, they've needed to learn from a lot of the new school guys the newer technology, which kind of developed a respect also. So it's kind of we came along at a really interesting point, and I think that a lot of it is now symbiotic. They can tell us the old school ways, we'll teach them new school ways, and it's starting to work together now. I think it's one of those things, just like everything else, you've kind of had to get over the initial hump of resistance, and then
Hmm.
things start working out.
That's awesome. So you've been teaching for quite a while then, and your content creation journey began.
In 2017.
Yeah.
I actually started months before that doing research. I was looking at videos online. I was starting to research microphones because I understand that the film microphones I use are different than the ones I would want to do in my presentation style videos. So I started doing a lot of research there. And one of the first people I met, I kept getting referred to his videos. I'm like, why in the world do I care anything about being a voiceover artist? But then as these videos kept getting recommended to me by YouTube's algorithm, I said, okay, well, you know what? That might actually be a good thing to watch because I am gonna be doing a director dress presentation in a controlled environment. Maybe it might benefit. And so I started watching Mike DelGaudio's videos. And then over the course of time, I noticed that a lot of his videos were starting to follow into the same kind of trends with the same microphones. And so I reached out to him and said, because he had said, if anyone wants to send me a microphone that you like to hear me talk into, or you want to hear me compare with some others, let me know, reach out. And I decided to do that. And there weren't really anybody doing that at the time on his channel. And so I just started sending him a whole bunch of things. And I started doing that because I wanted to see how he would do it and what perspective he brought as a voiceover artist, especially to film industry microphones. Because a lot of that also means, like, a lot of the times we'll block off an area, we'll acoustically pad it, and then I'll try to get a good solid track in a controlled environment. And that could be kinda like what a booth would sound like, a makeshift type booth. So I said, "Well, geez, there's something that this guy can teach me too." So I started sending him stuff that would help his channel, but it was also to get his perspective on that was helping me to kind of figure out and bridge some gaps in my training and experience. And so we kind of, buddied up there, and his channel then got huge, and he recently got 100,000 subscribers by now, which is amazing. Um, and, and I launched my channel a few months, later than that, after that. And he actually in October of that year, after I had about 30 or 40 videos done, he gave me a shout out on his channel, which I thought was amazing. I was very, very pleased. That he was like, I'm gonna give you a shout out on a video that's coming up. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that kind of it was one of those neat little symbiotic, I guess you could say, things that worked out to my favor.
That's awesome. Adam's in the chat and he said Booth Junkie is the man.
Yeah,
um,
he's awesome.
but we also had Midori say, I think everyone remembers a teacher who changed their perspective completely or gave them a drive for something that they didn't have before. It's awesome that you kind of collaborated in that way and shared your resources with Booth Junkie, and he taught you some things as well.
Yeah.
You're sharing a lot, and you have some pretty interesting connections to the microphones you test too. You've done some pretty interesting tests on them in the shower and all sorts of other
Yeah.
crazy things. So for anyone who
Yeah.
hasn't seen them and who's interested, go and check out what Ellen does. He really puts them to the test.
And what's funny is some of ththose videos never make the light of day. Never. I did an entire video about that I shot completely in the shower. I had the rain nailing me in the face for over an hour, or not the rain, but the shower
Shower
spigot
head.
just nailing me in the face because the whole video was going to be about lav microphone lav protection against the rain. Well, rain is very different than you know, a rain spout being blasted directly at a microphone.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference there, but I didn't do that entire video correctly. So I have all this raw footage of me, sitting in front of the shower, with the camera, rain dripping off of me. Here I am wearing the same shirts and stuff I always do. SoundSpeeds. And you may be wondering why I'm in a shower. And I go into this whole thing and I start talking about why these things work. And then when I got into the editing suite, I'm looking at this saying, what an idiot. The thing is just nailing the microphone directly, which is causing a whole bunch of impact noise. It doesn't happen that way with rain. Rain hits and it falls down. It might hit a little bit on your clothes, but it's not like turning on a spray gun and just nailing you. That's a totally different thing. So I ended up having to scrap the entire episode. There's other things I've done like that have totally that will never see the light of day simply because it didn't work out. So
Yeah.
it's
But you tried.
I
That's kind
tried.
of the
I
key
tried.
thing.
It
Yeah.
was a great way to spend a good 2 hours while my wife and daughters were out of the house.
That's something. Um, Mark
And
said,
and I totally I'm sorry to interrupt, but
you're right.
another thing that I did not, for some strange reason in my mind, contemplate is that the water starts off nice and warm, but after an hour, it's freezing. And so by the end of the video, I'm like, "So, yeah, I'm doing," my bottom jaw was literally quivering, and so my words were messing up. So if you ever think about shooting something in the shower, don't do it. Don't do it.
And then when there was no hot water for anyone else.
Well, no, there wasn't, but they
um,
weren't home to not know that, though.
That's all right then. Mark said Roger Deakins, one of the most skilled and prolific DPs, literally post diagrams of how he did shots and movies on his
Mhm.
forum. But like Alan said, just because he tells you what he did doesn't mean you can do what he does. Experience is everything, and you've got all sorts of other elements that go into the facets of what you do. And it's still awesome, though, that you are sharing what you share to help others and they can take it and use it on what they're working on.
Yeah. That's I mean, not everything is gonna be something that people can benefit from,
Hmm.
but that's the thing. There's a lot of information out there. Everybody out there has something to teach someone else. And that's what's really cool is whether you want to be in film or not, you might find 1 or 2 things that I say beneficial to you as you're going about, recording sound. And if not, maybe if you happen to be talking about, "Oh, yeah, oh, you want information? There's this guy I was seeing, it's nothing that I'm interested in, but maybe you're interested in it. Go check it out." And we refer somebody to somebody else. And there's a lot of content creators out there for you to potentially learn from.
Yeah, I love how you have some on your YouTube channel there, easy for people to find, to go to and get, you know, their experiences, or they do slightly different things. And a couple of the
Mhm.
connections you've mentioned, I think, I'm not sure if you did mention him, Curtis Judd.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Curtis, he's of course he's got Learn Lights and Sound. He's got great, experience out in the field as a ENG type sound and recorder. He does corporate videos, he'll do interviews. He does a lot of that kind of thing. But when he and I have talked together, and he's had me on a few live streams too, he is not the least bit shy about saying that's not really what I get into. So maybe if you could fill in some gaps here, but then I don't do corporate video. I don't do a whole lot with time code and with cameras. I mean, you can watch my videos and realize that I don't know much about cameras, despite the fact that I used to be a professional photographer of America photographer. I was a PPA photographer and a team mentor and a trainer in photography like 20 years ago. But the game has changed.
Yeah.
We started in medium format, and then we went into the digital, and we were using was it the D100, I believe? The Nikon D100 or the 100D, whatever it is, and but, I mean, but my videos are by no means great to look at. I mean, it's just funny because you go there for the information. You don't really go there to say, "Oh, this guy's a master of camera stuff," because I'm certainly not.
Yeah. You've been doing the live streams recently. They're an
Yeah.
awesome opportunity for people to come by live, like we are today, to ask questions and to interact with you. And I love that that platform of live streaming helps bring that connection closer between the people who have watched your videos in the past, just the ones that you post,
Mhm.
and then also capturing new people who see, hey, there's a live stream happening, or people share it and they come along and get to know you. Live
Yeah.
streaming's been a sort of a great a great way of making connections. That's what I'm
It
trying to
really
say.
is, and I guess you could say that there's a lot of my videos when I release them. they're edited, they're, polished to a certain degree. There's maybe 2 or 3 minutes there, maybe there's 8 minutes, maybe there's 10 or 12, maybe there's more, but people will give you that time. But when there's live interaction, it's the same thing as watching a sports event. Watching the Super Bowl is not the same when you catch it, on replay later, because people are gonna fast forward through it and look for the big plays. They're gonna watch for when the time freezes and then back up a little bit and see what happened. But when you have that live interaction and engagement, and you have people asking questions live, there's a lot of energy in that. And there's and one of the things I've enjoyed doing is I'll release my new videos usually every Monday. And then I'll usually on like Tuesday, maybe Monday night, I'll do a live stream. And I've started doing this the past maybe couple of months. But one of the reasons I do that is because if people have any questions, maybe they might have found my channel from that video. They might have questions that they want to ask. People will ask questions in email, but then it's not the same thing as having that interaction with someone live. And it might feed somebody with, I might answer somebody's questions that sparks somebody else's mind of, oh, I have a question about that too. And so I like the human interaction. I'm a very much a people person. I just love people in general. So to me, it's really neat, imagining that here I am in this weird little controlled environment. If I kill the screen right now, I'm talking to myself. You're not there. No one's out there listening anymore. I'm just sitting here in the room trying to figure out justification for me blabbing away. But the fact that I can see you, the fact that you and I are talking, the fact that there are people out there listening in chat at the other side of the world, even like you are to me, you're at
Yeah.
the other side of the world right now. And somehow we have met up in this weird, global space called Earth. And we're talking about, all kinds of different things and meeting people. It's really neat what technology has done in many ways. It's also scary in some ways, but it's really neat, especially the human interaction and connections with each other.
Absolutely. And I think more so now, probably more than ever, we kind of need them. It's good to feel connected to other people when we can't necessarily go out and connect with them
Yeah.
uh, physically, like close in proximity to people.
Yeah.
Is there some main thing that you wanted to share with people on your advice on how to make connections either in the sound or film industry or on a content creation journey or both? Just like advice you have on how to make connections or, yeah.
One thing you said earlier really stands out. What if you're an introvert?
Hmm.
What everybody needs to understand is that if you, as a person, whether you're introverted, whether you're extroverted, or what have you, if you're very scared of everybody else in the world, if you're scared of people knowing anything about you, where you are, if your life is an open book, whatever the case may be, think about yourself and what you want to do. What goal are you wanting to accomplish if you want to teach, if you want to do any kind of content creation? What is it you want to do? Do it for yourself in your own way. You may be someone that wants to write. If you wanna write, then why don't you write? You don't need to do it from the perspective of wanting to write a book or a novel or a screenplay. Just start writing a story. Just start writing something. One of my the best guys that has ever walked this earth and had interacted with me and taught back in the day, I met him out in ninth grade. He was my ninth grade, well, I didn't have him until 10th grade, but his name was Kieran Narker, and he's a performing arts teacher, drama teacher. He would get up at like 3 in the morning. He would go to sleep at 7 PM. And when he would wake up at 3 AM, he'd go down into this little closet that he'd kind of outfit to be a study, and he'd just start writing. He would usually start just writing random words, and then it would start formulating into sentences. And then his mind would kind of expel all of that. And then he would start writing a story. And he would just start something. Now, he then started feeling more inspired at one point. He just started writing a little screenplay thing, and it ended up evolving. He also was the same person that recommended to me to get into public access television back in the day. So it's like whatever the technique that you have is that works and feeds you as a person, whatever that is, groom that.
Hmm.
If you're introverted and you don't like talking to other people, that's fine. What do you like to do? If you just like to write things, if you like to read things, do that. If you like to talk, but you don't want people to listen, then record a whole bunch of stuff for yourself, and you're just doing it for yourself. It doesn't matter if you release it to the world or not, you're doing it for yourself. If you wanna make movies and create content and do a review of something because you wanna do it, or you wanna go out and record nature sounds or nature films, do it for you.
Mhm.
Don't do it for anyone else, because everyone's different. What feeds people and really benefits them is gonna be different for everybody. Me, I'm very extroverted. I can, and if like when you were talking about coming to America before, I was like, you know, reach out. I want to know where you are and when, and I'm gonna see you and that kind of thing. And I've done the same thing to other people. I've told Bandrew if it didn't freak him out at even the thought of it, I would say, hey, let's go out there and shoot a really cool episode of the BSP. And he's like, he doesn't respond to me for like hours, and I'm like, oh, geez. I guess I totally freaked him out. And but you know what? It's one of those things where my life is an open book. I'm very open and extroverted. Not everyone's that way. And so I understand if it's one of those things that people don't feed the same way, but part of it's being observant to that, especially if you're extroverted. My wife is very introverted. So I can just go downstairs and blab away, and then she'll send me a text message saying, "This is what an INTJ or whatever it is, what feeds them." I'll read that. And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wait. Oh, that's what she is. That's why she sent that to me, because she's what is this introverted? What?" And I start going through it. I'm like, "Oh, so everything I just did down there was wrong. Oh, okay." And so there's a lot of learning that we can do for ourselves too.
Yeah. Midori said relatable Ellen, and Bandrew said, wait, Ellen, you're extroverted? But
It may
Adam,
be surprising to some out there, but
yeah.
yes,
Adam kind of hit on the point though. Yes, do it for yourself first. That is what he had
yeah,
just recently put out in one of his podcast episodes as well, the Odd Dad Out podcast. Absolutely, most important. I think the your definition of success is going to be different for everybody, whether you're looking for success or not. But if you want it to be, whether that is being it worthwhile or what have you, do it for you, and it will be successful, or it will be worthwhile, or it will make you happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool. Just before we wrap up, thank you to everyone who came by and joined us live today. We managed to make it through, and I wanted for you to share where everyone can find you, Ellen, and connect with the things that you make.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned before, there's SoundSpeeds.us. I recently registered and got the site up and going. There's not a whole lot on it right now, but it's at least there, and it will grow in time.
Hmm.
But you can also do a search for SoundSpeeds on YouTube, and it'll direct you to youtube.com/SoundSpeeds. And I keep, playing with different ideas and different concepts and things, but you can always catch me in those ways and forums. And if you wanna see me do a live stream, then usually that's gonna be on a Monday or Tuesday. I'm terrible about announcing it and planning in advance. I'm not like you, Heather. I can't plan something 2 months out in advance and have it work out. I'll say, "Well, I'm gonna do a live stream." "Okay, let's go ahead and send that, I'll schedule it for 20 minutes from now." That's the way I work. And I'll
But
forget to promote it through, Twitter or anything like that, and then I'm like, "Wow, people still showed up. It's amazing."
yay.
But, that's what I usually will do. So if you have any interest in that, usually it's an early part of the week. That's where I live stream, and that's where my videos are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ellen, to celebrate connections. Thank you for our
Absolutely.
connection
Thanks
that
for
we
having
have.
me.
You are awesome. To everyone who was in the live chat, thank you. Um, a huge thank you to everyone who caught us live. If you can't see us live and you're watching the replay, thank you for checking it out. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and share it with a friend. That would be amazing. And hopefully, maybe not. My thing's broke. End credits. No, I just have to. My button didn't work. Yes, hoping. Where'd it go? Well, thank you to everyone who joined us and subscribed and resubscribed and shared and everything. And there was a bit of a hype train that happened. And until next time, be empowered by nature.